to the Real News Radio, your weekly broadcast where we discuss current events, the real news that the mainstream puppet press dare not report. And this week, we want to announce that on next week's broadcast, our guest will be Doyle Shamley. If you're not aware of this story, we want to cover just a little bit of it. He was the co-host with Bill Cooper, a researcher, author, radio broadcaster, very well known in the truth movement, murdered on November 5th, 2001. And this is his co-host, so we want to cover a little bit of that, make it aware to you that he will be our guest next week. So with that in mind, we want to go ahead and go into the news. And each week we are covering some of what's happening with the swine flu vaccinations that they're discussing. And this week we've got several we want to report. This was reported by Global Research, July 4th, 2009. A World Health Organization global alert headlined, WHO recommended on pandemic H1N1 2009 vaccinations suggest that a universally mandated ones are coming. It stated that on July 7th, the pharmaceutical industry dominated strategic advisory groups of experts on immunizations held an extraordinary meeting in Geneva to discuss issues and make recommendations related to vaccines for the pandemic. There's no pandemic yet, World Health Organization said. The virus is considered unstoppable. While admitting little evidence of spread so far, most cases are mild and many people recover unaided. Nonetheless, all countries will need vaccines and should follow these priorities as initial supplies will be limited. All countries will need vaccines is what it's saying, even though most people have recovered, or the masses have recovered totally unaided. Now, this was reported this same week. This is the San Francisco Business Times. U.S. orders $690 million in swine flu vaccines. The federal government is committing more than $800 million to buy more of the two key ingredients to make the H1N1 swine flu vaccines. Now, this is just for ingredients. Last week, we reported $8 billion spent on the coming vaccines that through their magical crystal ball, they see we are going to need come September and October of this year. We reported this, Associated Press, Miami Herald. Here it is, San Francisco Business Times. The money will be used to place additional orders on existing contracts with vaccine manufacturers, including GlaxoSmithKline and Novartis. The former Sharon Corporation facility in Emeryville is now owned by Novartis, which makes vaccines there. I'm sure Baxter Pharmaceuticals has got their finger in the pie too. The government is placing orders for antigens and adjuvants is the active ingredient in a vaccine that triggers the immune system to develop antibodies to fight the H1N1 virus. So while we're reporting that we've got an extremely mild flu outbreak, that the World Health Organization has took to level 6, most people by far has been able to recover without aid. I think the number is around 17 that's died in America and maybe 5 in Great Britain. The United States government which is totally bankrupt, is spending billions for a vaccine that they are openly telling us is going to become mandatory this fall. The Washington Post reported July 13, 2009, students first in line for flu vaccine. School-age children will be a key target population for a pandemic flu vaccine in the fall. And they may be vaccinated at school, this is the Washington Post, in mass campaign not seen since the polio epidemics of the 1950s. Now, if that don't throw up a red flag and tell you of things to come, this is foreshadowing. The federal government should get about 100 million doses of vaccine by mid-October. Got it dialed in exactly when they need it. If the current production by 5 companies goes as planned, but enough vaccine for wide use by the 120 million people, especially vulnerable to the newly emerged strain of H1N1 influenza virus, will not be available until later in the fall. Those were among the messages administration's officials delivered to the about 500 state, territorial, city, and tribal health officials yesterday at the flu summit at the National Institute of Health Bethesda campus. And this, I should have went into this a little further with Ms. Fox. This is what I was talking about. There was 500 state, territorial, city, and tribal leaders. I guess the Cherokee, the Sioux, they were there too. They want to make sure and give them the vaccine, I'm sure. They ought to make up for the treatment they gave the Indians for 200 years. But just finish them off. New Mexico's Department of Health prepares for influenza mass vaccination clinics. Medical News Today, July 15, 2009. The New Mexico Department of Health is planning for influenza mass vaccination clinics that will take place this fall to protect people against the H1N1 strain of influenza. This is not Farron or Brian saying this. This is mainstream corporate news. Medical News Today reported July 15th, 2009. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is advising states that vaccine companies are working hard on producing the H1N1 vaccination that may require people to get 2 shots in addition to the seasonal flu influenza shot. So 2 and 1 makes 3. They're getting you ready for 3 shots this fall, people. The agency has not told states when to expect the vaccines yet. CDC plans to cover the cost of vaccines for all states. Don't that make you feel warm and fuzzy? You're not going to have to pay for it. They're going to give this to you free. We are reaching out to our healthcare and educational partners throughout the state to make sure we can immunize new Mexicans from the H1N1 and seasonal flu. Even though it's a mild flu and everybody recovers, everybody needs to run down and get 3 shots. So as we continue reporting this, it's not only in America. This is being reported in Great Britain. Here's a news headline: all Britons to be vaccinated against H1N1 flu. This is in the Xenahoo News Agency, July 12, 2009. I'm reading from it. All Britons could be vaccinated against the H1N1 flu as the number of confirmed cases in Britain is moving closer to 10,000, health authorities said Sunday. The first doses of a H1N1 vaccine are set to arrive in Britain in September and could be fast-tracked through regulatory approval in less than a week. Health officials have put forward plans to build a nationwide immunity to the disease, the biggest vaccination program over the past 50 years. Here's my question. How are they testing this? They're having to rush it through and get it ready just by September, October, when through their foreknowledge, this is when the outbreak is supposedly going to take place. Does this leave any time for testing? Did we learn anything from the late 70s when the mass vaccination killed more people than the flu did, left a whole lot of people crippled and lame? Here we're trying to do the same thing again. I'm not buying it. I would absolutely not take any shot that this government recommended to you. They have forfeited their right to be trusted a long time ago, and here they're trying to run this roughshod over the American people. And you remember, Brian, a few years ago they were short on flu shots. The people were raving mad. I mean, they'd fight one person to fight 10 people to go down and get a flu shot if the government told them. The lines would be around the corner and down the street if they said, come get this shot.
How's that for marketing, having people fight over your product?
Yes, and no telling what's in these vaccines, and I'm not buying it. This H1N1 flu defies logic. It attacks the weak. I mean, it attacks the strong, not the weak, the young, not the old. It has all the remnants of some kind of biological flu that was manufactured, and now the government's going to be your savior, come forward with the magical flu vaccine that you have to save you. I'm not buying it. It just doesn't make sense. We got just a minute or two left, Brian. Anything else you'd like to comment on the news that came out just this week? This is just this week. I've been doing this every week. The news up to date on what's happening with the preparations for the mass vaccinations.
Well, like I've said before, I mean, the merging of, big business with government is, by definition, fascism, and that's precisely what's going on here. The government's promoting a corporate product. Even if this swine flu is 100% legitimate, here we have government, big business working, in conjunction to promote this product, to work to each other's mutual benefit to both sell billions and suppress the people.
Yeah, Big Pharma's getting rich, too, at our expense. Okay, we're coming up on a break. We'll be back in 3 minutes on The Real News with Farron and Brian. We're back with The Real News. Aaron and Brian reporting the news, the mainstream